Welcome back to Conspiracy Theories and Chill, y'all. On this episode, we are going to begin to unpack our series on CERN. I thought that we should start CERN out with what they are best known for currently, the ALICE project. Now, ALICE is an acronym for a Large Hadron Collider experiment. Now, it is one of the largest experiments in the world devoted to research in the physics of matter at an infinitely small scale. Large as in 40 countries, 173 institutes, 1,900 known members. They are not kidding when they say that this project is large. The ALICE project is a huge undertaking, in fact. Now, the main goal of the ALICE project is to characterize the physical properties of the quark-gluon plasma, a state of matter that they believe was created under the extreme conditions of temperature and energy density created in nuclear collisions done at the Large Hadron Collider. Now, such conditions are believed to have existed up to a few millionths of a second after the Big Bang, before quarks and gluons were bound to form protons and neutrons. Recreating this primordial state of matter in the laboratory and understanding how it evolves, they believe will allow them to shed light on questions about how matter is organized and the mechanisms that confine the completely made-up concept of quarks and gluons. You see, they made up fake words to avoid the one that they can't say even as they masquerade around as him. God. That's the word that they won't say. I will, though, and I'll say it a lot throughout our CERN project, I think. Anyway, the ALICE project, and much of CERN's agenda, in fact, is to directly offend God while trying to undo and alter his very creation. And I am serious. They want to play God. They won't say it, but that's exactly what they are saying and attempting to do. They want to make a mini Big Bang. You know, the bullshit narrative they give us as to how life and everything else came to be. The thing they base literally all of their other bullshit on. You know the one. The theory that nothing exploded nowhere and created everything. That one. And then they want to study how Big Bangs, which we just established that they made up, create things in life, etc. on and on. To put it plainly, they want to study how God creates by attempting to recreate the circumstances in which they think it all took place. Now, before we go any further, let me say just one thing. I know that all of this sounds insane, and I wish that I was making it all up, but this is very real. It's happening right now, and they are even planning a 10 times larger version of ALICE that they plan to launch in 2040. The second thing that I'd like to say in the very first of our CERN series is that they are waging war with God through CERN, and they will lose. So, if y'all are ready, I'd like to begin our look into CERN by going into the rabbit hole of the ALICE project. Let CERN tell you what they say it is.
We are here in the clean room of the ALICE TPC, being right behind me, and I will introduce to you today the ALICE high-level trigger project. But before we go into details, I want to show you a few numbers which are relevant for the understanding. Just take the TPC right here. It has about 320,000 analog channels on either side, which are digitized at 10 bits and 10 megahertz altogether. That makes a data stream of 3 terabytes per second. There are other detectors in ALICE, for instance the TRD, which even produces 17 terabytes per second. This is far more than can be recorded by any existing computer system or storage system today. On the other hand, the governing principle of the physics behind is pure statistics. So many events happen quite frequently, and it's sufficient to record a certain number of them, and any more are not interesting. So the idea is to select particular events out of the overall ensemble. And this is the purpose of a trigger. It selects the data coming from all the various detectors, and in case of the high-level trigger, it does a full analysis of all events coming in.
That made no sense, and I know that. Look, the science is going to go over your heads, but if you listen closely, it is because it goes over their heads too. In fact, their heads are so far up their own asses at CERN that they spew nonsense with a confidence that I've not ever seen before in my whole life. It's frighteningly fascinating. Let me show you what I mean. This is a CERN scientist explaining some of the technology of the Large Hadron Collider, specifically the FOSS spectrometer.
I'm a professor from the Kurchatov Institute in Moscow, Russia, and I'm the project leader of the FOSS spectrometer of the ALICE experiment. FOSS is actually the abbreviation of the photon spectrometer, and that is why it is called FOSS. And this is one of the main detectors of the ALICE experiment. Actually, the main purpose of this FOSS spectrometer is to detect electromagnetic radiation from the core-gluon plasma object, which will be created, or fireball, which will be created during the lead-lead collision at the LHC. And this is a very important signal of the core-gluon plasma, of any object actually. And so the main goal of this detector is to determine the temperature of the initial stages of the fireball, or hopefully the plasma, the core-gluon plasma, by measuring the spectrum of the photons which are irradiated by this fireball. And it is situated here at the bottom part of the ALICE detector, and it looks like that. You can see it here. It consists of 5 independent modules, and the basic unit of the photon spectrometer is so-called crystal detector unit, which is lead tungstate crystals, which I assume we have seen already before. And then we have this photo readout of avalanche photo diode, or APD, with the sensitive preamplifier. And the FOSS module consists of 5 such so-called FOSS detector consists of 5 such so-called FOSS modules.
I do like that he's just so damn Russian that he can't even sell the nonsense correctly, but he does do his very best to attempt to do it. See, this is their magic device that they have built to try to study the many big bangs that they create, in order to study them, to try to understand how reality works, because they can't. They can't figure it out. Most things are empty space, and they don't know how that is, and how they stay solid, and how they sit on top of each other, and they don't understand anything, really. When you listen to them talk, you find out that's true. But that reason for that is they can't accept God as the answer to the question. So they insert crazy amounts of nonsense in order to fill that enormous void that is left by removing the correct answer from the equation. But they know that too, though. And it's very clear that they do. They know exactly what they're doing at CERN. And it's very in your face. They don't hide it. They're right out in front about it, in fact. I was telling the story of CERN to Zach, and I was trying to get him to understand it, but he didn't get it. And it wasn't because I wasn't explaining it right. It's because it's crazy until you understand that they are actually trying to do what I'm saying they're trying to do. They are trying to split the veil, for instance. They are trying to bring entities through from other dimensions. What are you hearing when you hear those things? Because they say them. They say those things. They say things like that. They say that's what they're going to do. Create a big bang. They say that the 10 times larger one will be able to create one matching the Big Bang. They think they're going to have that much power. You know, what if this is our Tower of Babel, our Times of Noah event, where we try to pull something off again, where we try to touch the sun and defy God and spit in his face? What if that's this? The images that are playing out on the screen right now are taken from CERN's own promotional propaganda and a ritual that actually took place on the most high-profile area on their own complex, in front of that giant Shiva statue. And it was even being filmed from within their very own building. Now, the ritual that they deny is a real ritual because they no longer deny that it happened. It is a real video, they admit that. They just say now that it's a prank. But this slick demonic movie filmed at CERN that you're going to also be seeing clips from here, they own that project 100%. They're even proud of that one. Well, it's just art, you know. Just a metaphor, really. It's not literal at all. Except it is. Like, watch it. Watch the whole thing. You know, look at the clips I'm showing from it. You can see it's a ritual to a demon to open a portal. It's a dance even. It's Luciferian 100%. This is in direct defiance of God. But they say it ain't. And they do a lot of that at CERN. They're trying to undo the fabric of reality. And they think that we can recreate and study the creation event. You know, the one that they made up the word Big Bang to explain away, and the nowhere, nothing, everything, nonsense shit, that. But they're not Luciferian in their agenda, no. They don't want to defy God. They make many creation events, and they just do it at will and study them. But they don't want to defy God. They're not claiming to be like God at all. Or, for instance, the giant Shiva statue that the supposed fake ritual is happening in front of, for instance. Very high-profile goddess of destruction statue out in front of the place with the toy that they think can break down the God particle that is holding everything in existence together to destroy reality as we know it. You know, up becomes down, black becomes white, everything stops being solid. Who in the hell knows what? But we aren't maniacs bent on freeing demons here at CERN. But we say we're going to bring things through from other dimensions. Well, what are we talking about? We aren't trying to split the veil, but oh wait, we are. A CERN scientist said those words in an official CERN propaganda video, that they wanted to be able to split the veil. Now, what do you mean by that? I couldn't believe it, but they say a lot of crazy things, those CERN scientists. And they also heavily play up the occult while simultaneously downplaying it, kind of like they're rubbing the truth in your face. They talk out of both sides of their mouth constantly at CERN. But for now, guys, let's just get back to our current rabbit hole here at CERN for a bit. The ALICE project. What do they, CERN, say they're seeking to do with the ALICE project? What are their goals, in their words? I'm going to let them tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about this whole thing. We're going to wrap it up, and I want to talk to you guys about it. I want to hear what y'all think about this.
Particles collide at nearly the speed of light to study the quarks and other particles. Many of these particles only existed in the early universe for a fraction of a second after the Big Bang, when all the energy transformed into matter. In CERN's accelerators, we can recreate conditions that existed just after the Big Bang and shed light on such questions as, why do particles have mass? What is the nature of dark matter in the universe? Why did matter triumph over antimatter in the first moments of the universe, making our existence possible? What was the state of matter just after the Big Bang? 4 gigantic instruments called particle detectors will study the data from the LHC collisions in search of the answers to these fundamental questions. The experimental and theoretical study of these conditions allows us to understand the fundamental laws of nature and to unveil the ultimate mysteries that govern our universe. In the course of their research, CERN scientists have often come across discoveries that have affected our everyday life. The technology used for particle detectors is at the origin of security scanning equipment and several medical applications. And the World Wide Web was invented at CERN in 1990 by the British scientist Tim Berners-Lee. The web soon grew beyond the world of particle physics and has become our primary repository of information, changing and improving the way people interact and communicate. To treat these massive amounts of data produced by the Large Hadron Collider, physicists, together with experts from industry, are building a web of cooperative computing called the Grid. The Grid will allow thousands of research centers and universities to share their data storage resources and computing power, transforming the internet into a giant global supercomputer and building capacity for the science of tomorrow.
The next step in the hunt for new physics is to build an even bigger machine.
People expected for 40 years before the Higgs was discovered that the Higgs could not be a lonely elementary particle. It would have to come along with a lot of other things in order to give a coherent, sort of rational explanation for the origin of its mass. And the big surprise since July 4th, 2012, when the Higgs was triumphantly discovered, is that that has not happened. So that's really sort of 4 decades of a certain paradigm for what's going on with the physics associated with the Higgs that has not worked out the way theorists imagined that it would. And that's kind of fascinating. I think the last time something of this degree of surprise happened to theoretical physics was probably a little over 100 years ago. What nature has in mind for what the Higgs is about is something different than what theorists had in mind. While theorists are very confused about it, the program for experimentalists is completely clear. When you run into a kind of elementary particle you've never seen before, you've never seen anything like it anywhere in physics before, you just put the damn thing under a microscope and you study it to death.
It's pretty remarkable that we need to build enormous machines that produce an incredible amount of energy to probe the smallest things in the universe. And the push towards higher collision energies to discover new particles is connected to Albert Einstein's famous equation E = mc squared.
There's an equivalence here between energy on one side and mass on the other side. When we collide two particles, we gain access to the kinetic energy they carry, and out of this kinetic energy, new particles can be made according to Einstein's relation. And of course, the higher the energy that we bring into this collision, the higher the mass of a particle that is forming out of this energy can be.
To get more juice out of the machine, CERN shut the LHC down for performance upgrades. They're working on cranking up the luminosity.
Luminosity is a measure for the quality of a collider, and in some sense it tells you how many collisions per second this collider can provide.
When two of the elementary particles have kind of a head-on collision, and you can tell that that happened because the results of the collisions come out at larger angles relative to the beams, but it's still an incredibly messy and kind of complicated environment. And even when we produce new elementary particles like the Higgs, they don't come out wearing a name tag saying, I am a Higgs. They decay in a blink of an eye. It's the results of those decays that then our experimental colleagues have to sort of sift through, like looking for a needle in a haystack in order to actually see the evidence.
Scientists believe that a second run of the LHC could produce or detect miniature black holes, which they argue could point to entire universes hidden away in higher dimensions folded into our reality. It all comes down to some pretty theoretical science known as gravity's rainbow. I know, it sounds awesome. The basic idea is that gravity doesn't bend light equally, but instead affects each wavelength proportionately. To summarize the paper, this means that earlier attempts to find miniature black holes in the LHC weren't using enough power because the scales had shifted around these objects. Now the LHC will be powered to its highest ever energy levels, about double those of its last run. And if these scientists are right, the new run could uncover black holes tucked away in dimensions beyond the 4 that we interact with in our daily lives. As soon as more information or alien monsters come out of the hunt for miniature black holes, we will let you know.
So there's some of the science from the CERN science perspective for you guys. It's confusing as hell, and you have to listen closely because they never fully say it, but did you hear it? Over and over again. I heard it. They are messing with things that they don't even almost understand, and they clearly want to attempt to play God. This article here on screen is actually about one of their physicists worrying of the evil that is being done by them at CERN. Listen to this from the piece. Dr. Edward Mantle, a specialist in particle and subatomic research who studies very, very small particle interaction at CERN, ALICE, was involved in an incident on January 15, 2014 at CERN that may have secretly changed reality as we know it. Well, he's worried that it did anyway. It could have, he says. He thinks that it did. It is what they're trying to do there. Did they take us to another dimension? Have they brought entities through from another reality? They think that Alice can open portals and take us to other dimensions. They think they can intermingle dimensions even. They think that they can alter God's creation at will. They are wrong, dead wrong, but so is what they're messing with. CERN is an evil entity with unclean intentions, loosely pretending to be science when really it's more supernatural in nature what they're doing than it is scientific. ALICE is the CERN project that we all know best, and the one to come dwarfs ALICE by 10 times and will give them, they believe, the power needed to recreate the ultimate creation event that set all life into motion by God. They think they're going to recreate the Big Bang. I believe that they will fail, but they are set to wage this war with God and will continue to push to alter His work with their fancy gadgets that they have been developing for thousands of years. Well, I say thousands of years, but they say since the 60s. You know, right around the time they tell you that the Montauk and MK Ultra programs wrapped up. Let me leave you with a section from the statement given by that CERN scientist, Dr. Mantle, about the evil being done at CERN. In his own words, he said that the public has been told that it was constructed at a cost of tens of billions of euros for the purposes of studying the birth of the universe and the collisions that take place within the collider, and that allows us a quick glimpse at certain phenomenon that can only be witnessed when particles hit one another at incredibly high rates. This is not what the machine was designed for, nor is it what the machine has been used for since its inception. CERN's main purpose for building the collider was to open a doorway. Allow me to explain. The doorway idea came to fruition in the 1960s. You're going to hear a little Montauk in here. He goes on to say, after years and years of attempting to hide UFO phenomenon, including large-scale and very public interactions such as the Roswell incident and the Battle for Los Angeles, the governments of the United States, Great Britain, and France decided to throw their weight behind the understanding of what precisely these objects were. These ideas flew far and wide. Were UFOs from another planet? Were they from another time? Or were they simply mass hysteria and mass delusion filled by the overactive imagination of a public who were shit scared of communists and their technology? No, they were none of those. Our universe is but one page in a large book. Think of a closed book sitting on a table. You see each page stacked on top of one another, bound by the spine and sandwiched between the two covers. Our universe is but one page in a vast and all-encompassing book. And our page is certainly not the one with rich, in-depth thought and writing committed to it. Every page in the book represents a different dimension, each with its own unique writing, own unique story, own unique way of isolating itself from the other pages. And no page was to interact with the other, just as no ink bleeds from one page to another in a standard book. Each page is a universe unto itself. And within a few short years of mathematical research and fleets of scientists working under threat of extermination, should they share any of their research, the book idea was finally cemented. Though many disagreed, the mathematics were there to support the idea, and the mathematics also showed that it was impossible for one page to interact with another. That was until the 1980s. During the 80s, billions of dollars of research was funneled into the idea that if we used enough energy, if we used enough force, concentrated into a small enough area, the size of a pinprick, we could theoretically tear our page and get a glimpse of the next page to ours. We could open a door from our universe to theirs. Now that is from a CERN physicist who worked with ALICE and the other projects at CERN. Someone who really knows what they're messing with there. And you heard it there, right? I know that you heard it that time. He said it as plainly as any scientist working at CERN is ever going to say what they are really attempting to do there. They want to undo God's creation, and they will fail. Now this has been the first in our series on CERN, guys. The next CERN video will be coming really soon and will focus on another sub-project of CERN. I find the subject matter in the CERN series very disturbing, and I'm sure that you do too. But I want you to know, and I tried to state it multiple times in the video, they're going to fail. They will not succeed. Did they succeed in the first Tower of Babel? Because I believe this is our generation's Tower of Babel. They are attempting to pierce the veil. You heard him say it. They want to look at the next page. Well, we don't get to do that, and they're not going to succeed. But they are messing with things that are dangerous, and we need to bring attention to what they're doing there. They have a free pass to run wild with technology they don't even understand. But thanks for watching this episode of Conspiracy Theories and Chill. Please like and share this video out with your friends and family. And remember to subscribe to our channel before you leave. I'll see you guys next time right here with a brand new video. Have a blessed day, y'all.